Arashi, Prince of the Sky. Forward. Long, long ago, when the earth was still young, humans and spirits roamed the earth together in harmony. The moon spirit was the guardian of the earth and its inhabitants. The sun would light the earth, sustaining life in the day, and at night would cast his light upon the moon so as to shine into the world. But when the moon slept behind the earth, hidden from the sunlight, the spirit of fear lurked in the night. Fear fed off humans and gained power from those who wrestled with their terrors. Fear is a true master of disguise and deception. Its sole purpose on this earthly plane is to feast on the life force of humans and perpetuate his essence. During the age of world war and hate, fear was most powerful. It sought to destroy the balance between the spirits and the humans to create hell on earth and rule in a waking nightmare. However, there were two powerful spirits able to block his attempts at darkening the world. The guardians of the sky cleansed the human spirits of their fears. When humans passed away, their souls would return back to the sky. The phoenix would call upon the clouds and create the cool rain that would cleanse the earth and return the souls back to the human world to be born again. The fierce silver dragon would pierce the heavens with lightning to give spirits renewed life energy. He is said to be the most powerful force on earth. Without the phoenix and the dragon, fear would never be expelled from the human spirit, drowning them in their nightmares, lifetime after lifetime. After a millennium of defending the earth and warding off fear, the population of humans grew and became too great to manage. Fear was menacing all over the world and growing inside the hearts of people every day, causing wars, greed, jealousy, and enslavement. The spirits could no longer live in harmony with the humans. So, the moon spirit hid them from the eyes of people for good, and their magic with them. The spirits of the sky stayed hidden behind the moon's veil until they were needed again. Chapter 1. Genesis. All Arashi could remember was falling. There were swirls of light bleeding through the clouds as air was escaping his lungs and not returning. He was grasping for anything solid and struggling in the descent, all the while wishing it would end. Wake me from this dream, he thought. Give me peace. He pleaded to the universe, and there was. Suddenly, the grasping stopped, and the need for air subsided, and the peace he prayed for set in as his fall continued. The air around him felt like soothing hands to his skin, wrapping him in a layer of protection. The light became incandescent from the sky, and lightning surged through his being. It had been 15 years since the day of the ruining, the day that the veil of the moon was destroyed, the day Ishara sacrificed her physical body for the good of the world. So she, the phoenix, and her brother, Arashi, the dragon, could rise again to cleanse the earth of its fears. With the veil gone, the earth entered into a new era of spirituality. The shamans called it the nexus, the connection between the physical and the spirit worlds. Because of the nexus, humans born into the world were endowed with heightened spiritual awareness and powers. They possessed gifts that the world had not seen for thousands of years. It changed the way people lived their lives forever. A year after the day of Niagara Falls, Burmi, the chosen mother of the spirits by the moon, found herself in the sways of a new relationship with the man of her dreams, and gave birth to a child, a baby of light and chaos, named Arashi. This is where his story begins. He ran so hard he was almost out of breath, nearly tripping over a homeless person in the alley. The sun was going down as the danger was starting to rise. These New York City streets were not for the faint of heart. He spotted the Grand Street station and darted down the steps.
Y'all see him? Where'd he go?
He heard their distant voices trailing behind him. He skipped down the steps and hopped the turnstile.
Hey, get back here and pay your fare.
The booth attendant called out after him. He simply threw a couple coins that hit the glass and scattered to the ground.
Little brat.
He said as he came out from behind the booth to pick up the coins. 4 other kids skipped down the steps.
Move, old man!
Said one of the boys as they ran past him. One of them jumped up and kicked the man over, just to jump the turnstile. They looked up and down the platform, but couldn't find who they were looking for.
He must be headed to Brooklyn. Let's go!
One of the boys said. He had a gravelly voice that didn't fit the body of a 14-year-old.
We're not going to Brooklyn, is we? I hate Brooklyn! Shut up, fool! Come on, I think I hear the train coming.
He said as they all rushed down to the lower platform to catch the train. He hid at the end of the platform. He looked out from behind one of the pillars to see if they had followed him down. He spotted them just as the train was pulling into the station. The rest of the platform was virtually empty. The train screeched to a stop and the doors opened. The car was completely empty. Perfect, he thought to himself. Just before getting on the train, he walked up to the middle of the platform and stuck a middle finger up at the boys at the far end and entered the car, making sure they saw him so that they would get on the train as well. He took a seat and waited. This was the last stop in Manhattan. The train wouldn't get to the next station for at least 8 minutes if there weren't any delays. More than enough time, he thought. He pulled out his notebook and began writing something.
Hey! Think we wouldn't catch you, punk?
Said the ugly guy with the ugly voice. He was a feckless punk with bad teeth. His friends were similar, junkyard boys with bad manners and no home training. He continued writing.
You hear me, punk? I'm talking to you! Hurry!
Arashi perked up at the sound of his name. It sounded dirty when he said it.
You think you funny, boy? Huh?
They walked up to him slowly. Arashi nodded his head. Yeah, he actually did think he was pretty funny, but what was really funny to him was that they were the joke. That thought tickled him a bit, but he couldn't blame them for being pissed. They were just mad that he took all their money at the arcade. He liked to place wagers at the arcade. It wasn't his fault they sucked at asteroids. Ironically, he was really good at that particular game. But that's not what they were upset about. When they decided not to pay, he took it upon himself to get his money.
Give us back our wallet, you thief!
One of the other boys said. Ari held up the book he was writing on. The page read, "Piss off, you broke-ass chump."
You stupid mute fool! We're gonna beat the snot out of you!
Oh, gravelly voice said. They started surrounding him. He remained calm and held up the second page. It wrote, "You have about 6 minutes to beat my ass. Good luck. I'm rooting for you." He placed the book down on the seat next to him and took his stance, just as the train left the tunnel and was making its way over the Manhattan Bridge. Arashi was honestly very excited. Hopefully they knew how to throw hands, although he doubted that they had a trainer like his father. He put his hands up, ready to fight. The gravel-voiced boy threw the first punch. He let it land across his jaw, just so he can gauge the boy's strength. Weak ass, he thought. He barely felt it.
This dude crazy!
One of the punks said. Arashi hit him with a roundhouse kick to the head. The boy went down like a rock. One of the other boys charged at Ari, and he caught him in the stomach with his fists. His knuckles dug deep into his gut. All the air expelled from his body, and the boy slumped to the ground. 2 down, 2 to go.
Come on, let's bum rush his ass!
They dashed towards Ari. The train jolted to the side. One of the boys lost his footing. He ran straight into the pole and knocked himself out. Oh, well, damn! Really? Ari thought. He was facing off against the last boy. The sun was setting outside as they were making their way over the bridge. The boy stood in front of him, angrily staring him down. He looked like he was ready to pop a blood vessel. Ari just waited for him to come at him, but he stood there with a blank expression. Then, he felt it in the pit of his stomach, a feeling he hadn't felt in a very long time, but one he knew very well. The boy's eyes began glowing crimson red. His skin glistened and bubbled like boiling water. His energy and the light around him turned black as he took on a different form. The form of fear took over the boy's body.
Arashi, Prince of Crap. How I've missed you.
Fear said. His voice sounded even uglier now. It was his first run-in with Fear since their battle 15 years ago, when he was still just a spirit.
I like this look. Cursed to be a little boy forever, I see. You'll really fit in well with the rest of the humans. You will be happy to die with them as well. You are a pathetic waste of space.
Fear materialized his dark blade, the same blade he used to sever his spiritual connection. The sight of the blade sent him into a mad rage, causing him to recount each and every time he needed the ability to speak, to say how he felt, to express himself but couldn't because of what fear had done to him. I am gonna kill you so hard, Arashi thought, careful not to allow fear to get into his head. Now that he was human, his mind was more easily susceptible to the tendrils of self-loathing that fear incites. His heart was beating rapidly, fueling his adrenaline that was coursing through his body. He crouched down into his attack stance and clapped his hands together one time. The sound echoed like thunder in the train. He was looking forward to a good fight anyways. Fear moved in on him like a flash, swinging the blade at an alarming speed, but he was trained. He dodged the attack like a dance and was able to catch Fear with a strong uppercut to the jaw. He followed up with a knee to the stomach, then hurled the boy over his head to the other end of the car. He landed with a thud, but was back on his feet in an instant. Fear lurched at him again and managed to slice his cheek right under his left eye. The blade was coated with a dark energy and burned like fire. He continued to dodge the attacks until he was pinned up against the door. Ari was able to grab Fear by the wrist, holding the blade, and knocked it from his hand. Arashi knocked the boy in the head with a headbutt, but it didn't work the way he thought it would, because the bastard felt no pain. He struggled for a second. Ari kept kneeing him in the stomach, but with no reaction. Fear got up close to Arashi's ear.
I can smell your fear, Arashi. Taste it even.
He was licking the side of his face where he cut him. It burned like acid. He couldn't take much more of this, so he went for his trump card. He carefully unhooked the needle he was hiding under his tongue and spat it directly into the boy's eye like a dart. It was coated with a special blend of herbs that his body was immune to. Another gift from his father. Fear reared back, clutching his eye, and fell to his knees, his body becoming almost completely paralyzed. Arashi got off the wall and took a few breaths, slowing his heart rate.
Neat trick, boy.
Arashi wasn't taking any chances with him. He got close enough to dish the final blow when the train lurched sideways, causing him to misstep. Fucking MTA!
My turn.
Fear said, materializing another blade from his hand. Fear swung his arm up and caught Arashi in the wrist. The blade burned like acid fire as blood fell heavily to the train floor.
Oh, we're having fun, aren't we?
Still on his knees, Arashi had had enough.
I'm sending your ass back to hell!
He raised his good hand over his head and focused all of his energy into it. Sparks of electricity began to fly from his fingertips. He brought his hand down on the boy's head, and it exploded with a burst of light, sending his body down the train car smoking like a hot barbecue. Ari slumped down on the seat and clutched his bloody wrist. This was bad. The train slowed to a stop at the station. Ari looked around at the mess he made, blood and bodies everywhere. He had to get out of there. Hopefully, the possessed boy wasn't dead. The train doors opened to let in the next passengers. One lady saw the bodies and screamed. Arashi ran out the train, keeping his face covered, pushing past the rest of the bustling evening commuters.
Hey, yo!
He heard someone say as he stealthily disappeared up the steps into the rushing crowd of people, curious to see what was happening. New Yorkers are the nosiest people on earth. This is not good. As blood seeped through his fingers, he skipped down the steps to the uptown side of the station, cautious to take the back of the platform away from the commotion on the other side of the tracks. He leaned over and saw the light coming closer in the dark tunnel. The next train was pulling into the station. It would be gone by the time the police shut the entire station down for investigation. Arashi stood behind a beam so that he wouldn't be noticed by anyone on the other side. But when he came from behind it, a boy was staring him dead in the face. He looked like a tiger, with sharp eyes and intimidating stature. His expression was unreadable, but the second they locked eyes, Arashi's heart leapt from his chest, causing his body to stiffen rigidly, and the sense of deja vu came over him like a wave. The train rushed by noisily, obscuring his view. In that instant, Arashi leaned his back on the beam for a moment and closed his eyes to catch his breath. He couldn't tell if he was out of breath because of seeing that boy, or if he was just losing too much blood. He immediately ripped the sleeve off the arm of his hoodie and quickly wrapped it up tightly around his wrists, as best he could. People around him glanced and whispered, but left him alone. The train doors opened, and he sat down at the far end of the car, where there were only the double seats. He leaned his head up against the cool metal and inhaled deeply. As he did, he saw the boy running down the platform. He narrowly missed the doors as they closed in front of him, preventing him from getting on the train. He looked at Arashi for a split second more, with a longing in his eyes that made Arashi wish that the doors didn't close. He didn't exhale until they were safely in the darkness of the tunnel. He thought to use this time to come up with a way to tell his parents that he was attacked by fear, again. But "I hate fear" was the only thing running through his mind. He was mad as hell. End of chapter 1.